This is why I use the lapel mic. I'm good.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. It's great to see everybody. Been a long time since I've been a single person. Married 44 years, but I have such hope for you guys. I'm somebody that looks to the future with joy and believe that the best is yet to come. I hope you guys think like that.
Yeah.
Your future is very bright, and I think it's what you make it with the Lord's help. Mm-hmm. You know, the purpose of this segment is really to help navigate the challenges and obstacles that you'll face in your work life. Work is a very important thing. I recently retired about a year and a half ago, and I would highly recommend it. So if you can retire, go ahead and do it. It's a wonderful thing. But for most of you, for the next 40 years, work and finances and those things will consume your life. Do you realize that? It will consume your life. The average person your age will spend between 40 and 50% of their waking hours working. That's where your life will be spent. So the job that you have, the things that you do for work and life to earn a living are really important. And I hope today will help you guys begin to bring that into focus, to really see what work is about, and to have you be the best that you can be at work. The three of us have no unique wisdom or knowledge in and of ourselves. We're just, especially him, but we're just very, very normal people.
Yes.
But the Lord has provided us with some knowledge and insight that we want to share with you. As a retired guy, I have a keen desire to help the next generation come along and to live right and to do right and to make all you can of your life. I want your life to be productive and not be consumed with the things that this world really draws our attention to. I think what you even talked about in your previous lesson. To ensure that we are living this life the way that it should be lived. We all have experience with managing people. We have experience with operationally running businesses. We know what businesses are looking for with hiring employees. And we think we can offer insight that will be very beneficial to you. This is going to be a Q&A time. And I've written a few questions as an examples that you may cause your mind to start thinking. How do you know what career to pursue? Why are you working the job that you're working? What should you look for in a career? What do I do when my faith and my career intersect and it seems to be headed down divergent paths? What do I do with my life when they're divergently different? What are employers looking for when they're looking to hire an employee? How many here have a job right now? How many here wish they had a different job right now? If you'll listen to us, it will help answer questions in your life that will address that 40 or 50% of your time that you spend awake. How can you stand for right? I have some examples as a senior leader in a business, standing for right when everybody is against you. How do you do that? I think as we move forward in society, there are going to be times when you guys are going to have to stand up and stand for what's ethically, morally, and biblically right. How do you do that? I want you to feel free to ask any questions that may come up. Let me introduce who I am. Jeff Hopper. For 43 years, I was in the business world. For the last 25 years, I was a senior leader at a major U.S. corporation. I was a division VP of sales and operations. I managed during that time, depending upon the time frame, anywhere from 75 to 200 people. Managed a lot of people, fired a lot of people, hired a lot of people. I understand all the processes that go through that. I was responsible for managing a $200 million budget expense. How did we spend that money annually? $200 million. I had to make sure it was spent correctly. I had the responsibility for producing $500 million in revenue. $500 million in revenue fell on my shoulders. I understand how to run a business, and I understand the expectations that I had for employees. I traveled the country meeting some of the top business leaders in the country. Some of you have heard of Warren Buffett. I've been in his office. I met monthly with the lieutenants of Warren Buffett. Many other business leaders around the country who I've had the opportunity to engage with. So I do understand how American corporations operate and work, and I want to use that to help you guys. I have been saved since October of 1973 when I was 14 years old. Currently today, I teach the adult Sunday school class in here each Sunday morning, and I'm also the choir leader. I'm going to ask Kim and John if they would tell a little bit about themselves. Kim, would you go?
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you for coming and spending your weekend with us here at Calvary. We're so honored to be able to serve you and to have your lovely faces. My name's Kim Tanner, and I was raised in a Christian family. My dad was a pastor for 42 years at a small country church in Stockbridge, Michigan, and that's where I first came to know the Lord. At the age of 6, I did not want to go to hell. And so I decided to not go to hell. I needed to accept Christ as my Savior. And so my mom walked me through the Romans Road, and I knelt down next to her bed and came to know the Lord. And from that moment on, it was not living for me anymore. It was about living for the Lord. So it's that 180 transfer of that focus and the attention that we spend for Him. I am the exception to the rule, but I did marry my high school sweetheart, and we've been married for 26 years. We have 3 adult children, and I was in banking from leaving high school through college until when we were expecting Keturah, and then I quit when I had her. I was a stay-at-home mom for 6 years, and then it was time for me to re-enter the workforce when Spencer was going into preschool. And I knew that God did not make me that way. I needed a full-time job, and so I accidentally fell into senior living, so that's always a fun story to tell. So I've been in senior living for 17 years, and I absolutely love what I do. I've worn many hats and had an opportunity also to hire and fire many people, more than I like. My favorite is to mentor, actually, not to fire, and to coach up. I love, love, love having someone look at me and say, I want your job, and I say, let's make it happen. Because I'm not worried about you coming and taking my spot, because there will be a place for me somewhere else. And so I'm very excited when I have that opportunity to invest what's in this brain in someone else that will take my mistakes and learn from them and not make them themselves. So I'm here to help. If it's in my brain and you want it, you can have it. Just might take me a while to get to it. I'm very wordy.
Thank you, Kim.
My pleasure.
John?
I'm very wordy. Not really. My name is John Yarn. I'm a garbage man. You're supposed to say, hi, John.
Hi, John.
Really, I'm an operations manager for well, waste management is just might as well, whatever. They're a $17 billion a year company. I never, ever realized that there was that much money in garbage. But they don't give me $17 billion, so don't let me fool you. I'm responsible for probably $25 to $30 million of that a year. I've got about 55 drivers that I hire and fire, and it's hard, right? It's a part of the job. Like Wednesday, it's a part of that whole week we were talking about. Wednesday, we had to terminate somebody. It's a terrible thing, right? And so really my aim here, like I got saved as an adult. We know that I know a lot of stupid things, but I will also tell you I know people. My job basically entails, in a nutshell, I have to be able to correct you, and you need to leave that meeting feeling good about who you are. Yep. And it's sometimes it's challenging, but that's just what it is. And that is the culture that believe it or not, a garbage company has. We're going to make sure that our people know we love them, and I can appreciate that. That is, for me, that's absolutely wonderful, because you know what? You just want people to succeed, right? And that's my biggest thing. There are a lot of people that come to work here, and you just want them to succeed. If they succeed, I'm doing my job, and I am very much focused on doing my job. And so this has given us an opportunity to change people and help people and teach them how to work. And garbage, it smells sometimes, but you get used to it. There are so many good things about it. You know, you have to be a people person to get past the smell of the landfill, right? You have to be able to talk to people, and that's really where a lot of my strengths lie, is in those conversations, because you need to get them to buy into not just the company, but buy into you specifically, so that on a daily basis, the smells and the look, I have had garbage men fall down in the landfill and covered head to toe in trash juice. Okay, that's a technical term. Look, and I have to be able to sit down with them and make them not feel miserable about what they do for a living. And it's hard, right? It's hard, but I love it. I love helping people succeed. And that's really what my goal is every day. Okay? But that's about it.
So that's what we want to do. We want to help you succeed in life. And I don't know what your aims are from a work perspective, what you want to achieve, but we are here to help you achieve what you want to achieve. So I'm going to ask you, what questions do you have? I want you to understand there are no bad questions. The only bad question, you've heard the cliche, is the one that didn't ask. If you want to know something that will help you, ask the question. Do we have any questions to start off? I knew no one would raise their hand. Okay, Jonathan. Hold on, wait for the mic.
What would you do What would you do financially to prepare for either a relationship or marriage, or just making sure that you're in solid footing before you try to add somebody to that?
Yeah, that is a great question, and I actually teach some classes on finance. My background in college was in economics. As I told you, I managed a very huge budget. I'm very much a stickler on managing money correctly, personally. I would say if your money is not aligned right, you have a lot of work to do before you enter into a relationship. Not marriage, into a relationship. I don't think any woman needs to marry a guy that can't handle his money. You are asking for problems, and I'm probably getting bricks thrown at me right now, but it's the truth. It's the truth. I've done a lot of studies on family relationships and money, and it causes as many problems in their marriage life as any other thing in life. So you guys, if you aren't handling your money right, you have some work to do. If you're looking for a girlfriend or a spouse, get your money right first, is what I would say. These guys may have something to add to that.
Save, save, save. Have a nest egg, because you're going to need it.
Look, my thing was, and actually I believe Dennis talked about this yesterday in the split session, if you are a single male, you should have no debt.
That's exactly right.
Right? Look, I didn't even know what a bill was till I got married. Because it allows you to have a base where you can start. If you bring a bunch of debt to marriage and now you have all those married bills on top of it, it's stress. And if a lot of these marriages are ending because we're fighting about finances, as a single man, you should handle your money, handle your bills. You should not have debt. Okay? It will start you off correctly. And if you don't start correctly, it's hard to right that ship. Okay? It's hard. Marriage equals debt. You know what? I'm not taking that back. It's true, right? But if you start with a good foundation, that debt is easily cared for. Okay, there are things you're going to have to buy that you're going to have to be in debt for. Unless you guys can pull, well, at this point, like $300,000 out of your pocket, you're going to go into debt. Don't start with a bunch of it and then keep adding to it. The object is get out. So if we start clean, we have a good foundation, right? But you have to start with a good foundation, everything. Otherwise, we're building houses on the sand and huff and puff and blowing stuff down. Nothing's working, right? The big bad wolf's out there. He's going to destroy you. Set yourself up to succeed so you and your mate can have a healthy relationship that's not involved with daily discussions about why we can't have more than ramen. Been there. Yeah, it's not fun. So if you do it right before you get into it, it makes it a lot easier.
So people that know me well know that I don't mind meddling, and I will meddle a little bit.
Amen.
You guys, I'm talking to the guys right now. How many of you are looking for a relationship with a young lady? You don't have one now, but you're looking for one. Let me see your hands. Get your money right. If you don't, you're putting the cart before the horse. Did that answer your question?
Well, also, you're looking for a woman that has what?
I'll let her answer that.
What exactly was your question?
Well, if you have your bag and it's all set, but you marry a bag with holes, so what are you looking for on the other side?
Define holes.
As far as can they spend their money, or what are red flags that you would look for? You're like, that's not the person you want to.
So I guess I would dig in a little more with you and find out what are you looking for in a spouse. If you're saying I want her to bring a nest egg to the relationship, it's different than saying I want to know that you can handle money and help with the way things are going. So it's really a conversation that comes along. It'll be great to have that conversation with your counselor, or even while you're in the talking stages, to find out, because one of you is going to be a saver and one of you is likely going to be a spender. If you have two spenders, you're in trouble, and you've got to change your ways. And so that, as you learn what that looks like, now is she going to come into the relationship and potentially have school debt or other things? So it is a conversation that you're opening yourself up for. Perhaps, were you taught? Do you understand? And where are we gonna go moving forward? It is possible to get out of debt when you focus on it and make it a priority. And so it's something that you can come back from, but ways need to be changed in that way. I used the word way twice, so I apologize. But I think you need to know what you're looking for, and then a very open conversation, and then see where it can go from there. I think what a woman brings to a marriage is a lot more than financial, and the support that you have in the decisions that are made, the woman that stands beside you no matter how difficult it is, the woman that says, we're going to make it through, and says, let me hold your hand through this, and you get home and you realize that she has not overspent a budget that was shared. You're going to find that your home is very harmonious because you're having open conversation. But a lot of things come when you take the chance to talk about it and be very respectful in the way, so that you both understand that you're heading for the same goals.
Yeah, and let me jump in and say this. I don't want to get too far down this path and have you begin to think that life is all about money. It is not. It is not. So I want to make sure that I write this conversation. Finances are important. How you spend money is very important, but it is not the overarching thing of life. As a kid, I've been on the very poor side. We had nothing. And as an adult, I've done very well financially. And my spiritual life was not determined by having little or a lot. My finances were indicative of what my spiritual life was like, what I did with my money. Somebody could look and say, he is handling his money just as the Bible says. The Bible tells all of us that no man should be in debt. That means ladies and men too. So that applies to all. So don't get confused in saying that you have to have all your money lined up in order to have a relationship, but you shouldn't have any debt. And the married person sitting in the other auditorium shouldn't have any debt. I shouldn't have any debt. We should eliminate those things is what I'm saying. That's the point. Does that make sense? Is that clear? Okay. What other questions do you have?
Eric had a question.
Eric, yes, sir.
So being those that are in authority and we're like a couple years outside of the virus here, like there was like, being in that realm. There were some decisions that had to be made that were imposed regarding shots and stuff like that. How do you deal with people that just won't be able to do that? It goes against their moral conscience on this type of issues.
So I was that guy. This is a true story. My company was requiring, will not get the shot. I think it's another business. But I am one of the 5 or 6 leaders of the company, and the CEO called me and said, Jeff, we have had 85% of our people get the shot, and you haven't. I swallowed real hard, and I knew the conversation was getting ready to happen. I said, I want to be really clear with you. I want you to know this is coming from a place of respect. I respect you greatly. And what I'm going to say is a point of truth and not trying to combat you. I said, here's the truth of the matter. It's none of your business. He said, okay. Hung up the phone. I told my wife, I'm getting ready to get fired. There are things in life from the work does not control and make decisions for me. I rent my time to them to earn a living. They don't control my life. The Lord controls my life, and my wife controls my life.
Amen.
Smart men.
So you have to know what you believe and be willing to stand. I was having the conversation with Brother Dennis earlier about men standing up for what is right, regardless of the consequences. I think that will happen more and more in our society. You need to be sure where you stand and what you believe. Jobs come and jobs go. But my morals, my ethics, my biblical standing is going to stand firm. So I hope that answers your question. Brother John, do you have anything to add to that? He dealt with people in this regard too, I think.
All right, so the thing, and I'm just going to say this now, waste management was incredible. Okay, Amy and I talked about it before we ever showed up back to work, and all the stuff that happened. It was, if we have to, I'm not going to take it. We'll quit. We'll do what we got to do. It is a decision that I made with my wife, instead of just coming in and say, hey, honey, I don't have a job. So we were prepared. We already knew. So we come to work, and they had this big meeting, and he's, Zoom, all that garbage. And he says, listen, so about this shop, waste management is never going to make you take it. And we all just kind of sat there like, what? This is not what we're hearing about. They said, look, this is a personal choice. Now, I'm shocked because we heard all these stories about everybody being made. I am completely beside myself because you got to understand, we're at hospitals. We're picking up places where, you would just assume you come in direct contact with it. We were actually considered, believe it or not, essential. Like, I did not miss a day of work during COVID. I made more money during COVID than not because we were there every day. And they told us, they said, listen, this is a personal choice. They tracked everybody who got it, all that kind of stuff, but they never one time said, you're going to have to, you got to go do it. Not an ounce of pressure. And we were tremendously fortunate. Our pressure came from customers. Because a lot of these hospitals, a lot of these customers, well, you can't come to the property if your driver doesn't have a shot. Well, I'm not going to make my driver get the shot either. Okay, well, you know what? We're just not going to pick up your garbage. And then they call the news. It's the weirdest thing. I didn't realize that was a punishment in garbage, but every time they get mad, they call the news. But the fact of the matter is, we had it from the number one guy that said, we're not going to make anybody do anything. And if we can't service our customer because they're going to make us do it, if you don't have any people that have gotten it, then don't go. And we were so relieved because I'll be honest, Amy didn't want me to quit. She likes the prestige of being married to a garbage man. But really, we were truly blessed. It was not even anything we really had to consider because early on they came out and said, hey, look, we're going to figure out how to keep everybody at work. We're going to figure out how to do everything, and none of us have to do it if you don't want to. we recommend it, but that's the end of the conversation. And that really was the end. It was great.
Do you have anything to add?
Opposite. So working in senior living, it was essential that I take both the shots and the boosters. And so it was a conversation at home about, was I willing to have to be forced into something to keep my job? And the answer at our house was yes. And so I am vaccinated. I have 2 boosters. Now I think they're up to 10. So thankfully they stopped requiring the booster shots, but I am someone who got the shot to keep my job. And so it is something that in senior living, we were with the most vulnerable populations, especially in our memory care and our assisted living. And we were seeing people die on a daily basis from COVID, having COVID and other comorbidities. And so it was something that I chose, as a family, we all chose together for me to make that decision. And as an executive director at the time, it was essential that I led with example for what, and I was in a place that it was necessary for me to continue that way. So you have great examples of choices made. That was their choice. That was the decision we made as a family for me.
Let me ask you guys a question. Is money the most important factor in the job that you get? What is? What is? I think if we think about these things, a lot of the questions of life begin to answer themselves. But I can't tell you how many people I know who have left a job making $85,000 a year for a job making $100,000 a year, because it's $100,000 a year. What is the most important factor in the job that you choose? Yes, ma'am. You got to talk louder. Here's the microphone.
So I actually came from a secular job into a Christian job, and I make less than I did there, but it's the fact of I get to be around really godly people, godly influence, and I learn a lot from it. So it's better for me that I make less and get more spiritually, in my opinion.
I think that's wonderful. I think a lot of Americans make the mistake of thinking the amount of money you make determines what you do. That's a bad decision, a very bad decision. What is obviously for Jackie, that drop in pay was the right decision for her. What makes you determine what job you want? Yes, ma'am. Can you get up?
Flexibility. I feel like during college I worked several different jobs, and it all came down to what was the most flexible for me to be able to go home, spend time with my family, as well as times when I wanted to take things like a missions trip, or I had an extra long ministry weekend, and I ended up settling on a job that was more flexible in the fact that I was doing the same amount of work, and yet I had to hold myself accountable in the time frame that I did it.
The right priorities of life. That's what that is. Having right priorities in life. And I would implore each of you to determine what are the priorities for you in life. I relish being at home with my wife. For me, that is extremely important. It would determine positions that I would take at work by can I spend time with my wife. What about you? Who else? Yeah, Jonathan.
My last job, I was an over-the-road truck driver for several years. I had maybe Mondays off, about 34 hours off. I was not driving. I was over the road with somebody, so I was, even when I was sleeping, I'm bouncing on the road. I'm working about 70 hours a week on the clock and others. So I really didn't have a lot of time to be able to go to church. I was, listen to your Bible, listen to the radio, go into church when you can. But I finished one job because circumstances. I went to the next one, and things kind of fell through. And then somebody ended up for today. Hey, you can always work over here Monday through Friday during the day. You'll be able to go to every church service, do a soul winning. I'm just like, look right up on it. And it's a big pay cut, but able to have the time off like here, be able to be in the services, and it's really been a blessing, especially spiritually, because you miss having a good church.
Work is important. Work is something we all must do. You're going to have work till you get old like me. But there's a decision matrix that you can use. Is this fitting where I am living my life? One day, when we all die, I'm going to be in heaven, and the job that I had will not have mattered. It will not have mattered one iota. But things I'm doing here today, things I'll do tomorrow in Sunday school, things where I'm living my life for the Lord, that's the things that really matters or are important. I think Hannah had her hand raised. We're trying to get Adam to have a little
All the
exercise.
I was just going to say, I know some of the people that I graduated high school with have looked back and seen, oh, you became a Christian school teacher, and they're making so much more money than I am. But I think for me, it's important for my life because of being a Christian school teacher. I've been able to have that biblical integration in my curriculum. And I've even heard from some other people, why don't you go into the public school system? And even though it's not as much money as some of the people that I graduated with, at least it's more than I'm making now. But being able to pour into the kids Christ and being able to show them the love of Christ every single day. Whereas if I went into the public school system, I wouldn't have the freedom to do that. So it's very important for me to be able to show just a little bit of, and I know in the Christian school system, because we have an open, what's the word I'm looking for? Open registration, that some of those kids, that's the only biblical integration that they get. So being able to have that little bit, I would rather make less money knowing that I was able to show Christ to them than to make more money but not have the freedoms that I have at a Christian school.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let me ask you another question. What are the most important traits that you bring to an employer? What should your character be like? You are selling and renting your time for somebody else in exchange for some dollars. What is it that you bring to the table that they should want to pay for? What is it? Yes, sir. Eric.
I've had like experience from this, from being like a manager and a kind of an individual contributor. But two things that I think are very important for me is accountability. Are you going to be there on time? Are you going to be able to complete tasks as directed and on time? And are you take responsibility for things that may go wrong, and how are you going to be able to correct those? And then the other thing is a good attitude, because you're there not just as a worker, but as an ambassador for Christ as well. So your attitude, how you're responding to different things, is really showing your testimony to other people, and many of them are non-believers. So it's like your opportunity, my opportunity, to be able to show Christ's light through me in those situations, especially times when things may not be going as smoothly as normal. So
I think Eric was just preaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's true.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you, and this is not a slam at a younger generation, but it's what I've observed. I was hiring people that they were starting off at $125,000 a year, and they couldn't show up on time. They were irresponsible with the task that they were given, and they had a bad attitude. That will differentiate all of us in the workforce if we will work hard, if we won't complain, if we try to think of something beyond what the bosses ask us to do to show how valuable you are. Do you guys have anything to add to that, John?
As a hiring manager, those are exactly the qualities that we're looking for. So we want to know, are you going to show up on time? When you don't show up on time, you affect the entire day and every other person on that shift and the one that you're replacing. It's huge for someone to come to you and say, I made a mistake, explain it, and then we fix it, as opposed to trying to cover it up and hide it, and then we're all in trouble. And I'm looking at that person going, own it. We learn from our mistakes. I had a leader that said, mistakes are rocket fuel. It is the best way to show where we can be because we've overcome an obstacle together. And so it's It's good to make mistakes. We learn from them. It's better if we don't ever make them again. But that's a great way to show that you're coachable and that you're willing to be vulnerable to say, I own my mistake. This is what I did. And then recover.
If you will do the things that Eric said, you will differentiate yourself in the workplace. When it comes time to lay people off, guaranteed you're going to be one. They'll do everything they can to save that position. John, what do you have to add?
All right, so the thing is, and this is the hard part, because everybody wants to be the super spiritual, but we don't want to have that testimony that we do the hard things. And so we're not dependable. We don't communicate well. Like in our job, literally every day, people are like, oh, I'm not going to be there today. And then they tell you, oh, we're in the hospital and my wife's dying. And you hear the dumbest things, right? And it comes down to integrity. And the truth of the matter is, if you would just call me and you're honest, say, hey, look, I'm tired. You know what? I don't want you out there in a garbage truck when you're tired anyway. So odds are it's probably best you stay home. But we make things up because the workforce as a whole lacks integrity. And so they feel like they have to hide. I terminated someone Wednesday for that very thing. Okay? It's hard to get terminated from waste management, but that'll do it, right? I've now overcharged customers because of the actions of one person. Now, I got to go back and tell them, and yeah, hey, I'm sorry. Anyway, the thing is, and the thing that I'm always reminded of between interviews when we're trying to figure out who we're going to hire, and I'm sitting down, I'm talking to you, to the point where you're actually an employee, and your testimony matters, okay? It's hard to balance the Christian attitude, the Christian mentality, the Christian thing, and you want to and keep it within the realm of business. The easiest way to do that, God tells you should be on time. God tells you you should live your life that's pleasing to him so that people see that you are different. God tells you how to do all of these things, and God's expectation, not even your boss's, God's expectation is we are the best employees because that speaks for who God is, right? So when people know you go to church, but they know you don't show up on time, and they know you don't do your job right, and they know you don't care about the rules, what are we saying about God? Okay? And that's the thing we have to remember. We can talk about it all day long, but if we're not actually going to be about it, that's going to tell everybody what we believe here, what God is, and he's no different. You're not going to draw people to you if you're not different. Hey, so I will go even further. It's a responsibility that we have as saved people to be the best employees that we can, because that's what speaks of who God is, not the fact that we tell everybody we go to church. That's important, but the fact is, if our actions don't line up with what we're supposed to be doing, they don't care where you go. Okay? That's the important thing, and that's why I love what Eric said, because it's absolutely true. I want integrity. I just want, if I could have my employees just exude the Christian principles, man, we'd run this city and go home after 8 hours a day.
Yes.
But unfortunately, even in the Christian world, that's becoming further and further from the truth. And if you're that employee that still has those principles, you have tremendous value, because we just know you're dependable. And the fact that you're dependable makes my job a lot smoother, right? So that's really all I got for that.
So let me ask this question. You have secured an interview. It's a job that aligns with your moral values and principles. How do you prepare for that interview? I've interviewed people that didn't, as we were talking, they didn't even convey the name of the company that they're trying to get a job with correctly. How do you prepare for an interview? Johnny.
Well, there's a couple things. First, show up clean, well-dressed, and know what you're going for. If you're going for a job at a restaurant, that's different from showing up for a job that's like what you guys are doing. That's big business. Know what you're going for, know what their company standards are, and then comply.
It's true. I've actually seen somebody that is coming to an interview with me, and they were dressed shabbily. I told my assistant to cancel the interview. Dress right. But there's other things you can do. Hold on one second. There's other things you can do. What I do when I was going for an interview, I sat down and I wrote every question that I thought that they may ask. And I would probably have 75 to 100 questions I wrote, and I would answer them. And I picked the questions, about 90% of them right. And they were blown away by the fact that I gave detailed responses to difficult questions. And the only reason I did that, I was able to give good responses, I sat down and thought about it before the interview. If you want to work at a job hard enough, you'll spend some preliminary time preparing for it so that it shows the interviewer that you're interested and you're Johnny on the spot. You're somebody worth hiring. Do y'all have anything to add to that? That's something I did.
Yes, absolutely. So research the company, research the positions, the names, the people who are, not so you can be a name dropper, but if they walk past you in the hallway, know what their role is in the company. There's a lot of like about us pages on their website that you can learn that information. And when you come to an interview, be able to interview in different ways too. They might ask a question about, tell me about a time when you, and then they give you a scenario. And so a lot of times we're like, okay, I'm on time. I always punch in. I'm a good worker. I'm a hard worker. And I really, and then ultimately share that you want the position. Do you want the job? Or are you just checking something off so you can continue getting unemployment? Like, what is the reason that you're going for that interview? What's the intention? And so with that, knowing what you want to accomplish, share that. Because I want to hire people who want to work with me. I want to hire people who are going to be, coachable and enjoy and try hard. And so when they express that during my interview, they get a huge check mark on the top of their page because I'd like to go further and get to know them more.
Believe it or not, in the garbage industry, if you show up to an interview with me and you're not dressed appropriately, even I won't talk to you. Okay, this is garbage now. That's how important our first impression is. Okay, but for me, when we interview, it's all about fit. All right, because there's one of you here that's driven a garbage truck. Nobody else really. I don't get a lot of people like, oh, I've driven it for 20. Okay, so what I look for is, do you and I fit together? Okay, are you going to be someone that I can coach, that I can teach, that will be on time, all that kind of stuff we talked about, that will have those principles and do the things that I need, right? Are we going to fit together? Are you going to understand that I'm an idiot and we'll laugh, but there's a time when we have a conversation that it needs to happen, right? So when we interview, a lot of times it's going to sit down, it's going to seem very casual, right? We're going to talk. I am very good at making you comfortable sitting there talking to me. Do not let your guard down. Okay, because what I like to do is we're going to talk about things. And I'm going to talk about what you did before. And if you were a delivery driver, and I'm going to get you into that discussion where you've been delivering out in Collierville. And when you go through Piperton, we all know if you speed through Piperton 1 mile an hour, you're going to get a speeding ticket. So then we're going to get to talking about speeding tickets, and I'm going to get your guard down. And the next thing I know, you're going to start telling me about all the speeding tickets you have. And I'm going to check the little box down there and say, not for hire. Don't just run your mouth. Right? Be controlled. It's all a direct reflection of your preparation. But if you're controlled in the things you say, do not allow yourself. You may be that speeding guy, but it's your job to fool me. Right? If we just start spewing out of the mouth all the dumb things we do, chances are I'm not going to call you back. Right? We're just talking. I literally tell people that, hey, listen, have a seat, relax. You nervous? Relax. Let's talk about something. And we will start talking about your family. We will start talking about all these things to get your guard down. So now you and I, we're just having a conversation. And I do that because I need to learn who you are. Hey, we don't need to tell everybody everything about our lives. We don't. We need to protect ourselves. We've all made mistakes. I sit here, try to pull your mistakes out. I've made mistakes, but I'm sure not going to share them with you. We're not going to do that in a job interview. Maybe later after you're already cutting me a paycheck, we're going to laugh at how stupid I am. But in that interview, We're only going to talk about the good things and the smart things and the wise things that I do. And a pet peeve of mine is, hey, do you have any questions? When can I start? For me, you ain't. I don't know why. That's just my own little pet peeve. I want real questions. I want you to act interested in like Kim said. I want you to be interested in what we do. I had a guy call us Waste Pro. Nah. I'm like, number one, we're a lot better than them. Number two, we're not them. Probably should have thought that one through a little bit. And he goes, oh, well, yeah, my bad. If we're very flippant, if you misspeak, fine. But if we're flippant, I take that as that's your personality. Yeah. If your mouth just keeps running, I take that as, okay, this is somebody that's going to talk a lot that's not going to hear me. Okay? These are all things that we look for and we try to diagnose because we have to find fit. We have to find the right people because we spend a lot of money to train you. It's like $40,000, $50,000 just to get you to your first day by yourself. Okay? It's a significant investment. I have to figure out, and if you think we're going to talk about the dumb things you do and I'm not going to hold that against you, you're wrong. And we all do it. Okay? So just be careful. Be careful of things you say. Be prepared. Use your head. Okay? I'm not going to sit in front of my mom and tell her all the dumb things I did because then I'm going to get in trouble and I'm going to get grounded. You shouldn't either. Okay?
He's absolutely right. One thing I look for in an interview is at the conclusion of the conversation that we have, I want to see what questions you have. Mm-hmm. One question should not be, and every time that this happened, I crossed them off and didn't call them back. What are my benefits? I'm not looking for what's good for you. I'm looking for what's good for the company. And you need to think about that. When you're in an interview talking, it's not about you and your wants. It's about the company and their wants. All your questions need to be lined up. A great one, though, I can see myself having a career here. What are the career advancement opportunities? Showing that you're interested in being a part of a great company. The interview is very important. The things you say, as he just said, are very important. Watch out what you say. Mm-hmm. You have anything else to add, Kim?
I wondered if I could share something that I teach just about anyone who will listen. So would you like a Kim story for a second? All right. So I had been in senior living for about 7 years, and my responsibilities were I was an activities coordinator as well as a salesperson. So at the time I was selling, it was 60 individual cottages and a 10,000 square foot clubhouse. It was independent living, so this is seniors that are 55 or better who could live anywhere. And so I had gotten the sales had gone well, so I was at a point where I couldn't be a full-time salesperson without anything to sell, so I shared responsibilities with activities as well. So those are the fun things that we're doing throughout the day. So how do you fill a calendar for a bunch of old people who I love, and make it enjoyable and make it something fun? And so I received an email after sending out the new calendar for the next month. And when you send out a calendar for an entire month of things to do, you've spent a great amount of time on that calendar. A lot of energy, a lot of phone calls, a lot of arranging and coordinating to make sure that everything was ready to go. All of the classes that were being taught, making sure all that was in alignment. I received an email back from my resident bully. And my resident bully wrote me a 4-page email on my calendar. She CC'd my boss, the president of the company, the vice president of the company, and probably another resident was on there too. And I read that email, every single word, and I was devastated. I was probably 30, maybe 34 years old. And I sat in my office looking at that computer, and tears just streamed down my face. All that work for an immediate shutdown for this resident bully. Jack, one of my favorite people at work ever, comes to my office. He's the maintenance director. I have a huge heart for maintenance, guys, if you know. It's what my husband does now and my son. And so Jack walks in and he goes, "What's up with you?" And I'm like, "Can you believe this woman? Can you believe what she said to me?" And he goes, "I see an email in front of you." And he said, "There's no tone in email, Kim." And I went, oh, yes, there is. Look what she said. And he said, there's no tone in email. He said, read it again. So now I read it without my Kim opinions about what she had to say. And I'm like, right? And he goes, nope. And I was like, Jack, I love you, but you're wrong. And he says to me, is she entitled to her opinion? It's like, you know the answer is yes. Yeah. And he says to me, can her opinion differ from yours? Yes, Jack, her opinion can differ from mine. And then he says to me, did she actually ask you any questions? And I went, hold on. 2, answer the 2 questions, Kim. That's all you need to do. When there's so much clutter and opinion and things coming at you, number 1, don't assume ill intent. Yeah, the president of the company was on her email. Answer the questions that were asked of you and let the opinions go. Now, for her, there was a nugget. I found a nugget in all the things she had to say. And she was saying, organizing a calendar is really important to me, and I want things to be redundant. So I can always say the 3rd Tuesday of every month, we're going to have a hymn sing at 4 o'clock. That was her truth. Took her 4 pages to say that, and a lot of mean things about me, but that was her opinion. When I was able to let someone else's opinion go and worry about how I was doing my job for the Lord and not for other people, it freed me a lot of mind space up. So no matter what comes across in your feed, in your social media, on Facebook, I know we don't do Facebook very much anymore. There's a lot of opinion on there. Take it away. See if they ask a question and only answer the question they asked.
That was good, Kim. It did remind me of something. When you do have an interview, at the conclusion of the interview, either the next night or the next day, or that night or the next day, send an email to the person, thanking them for their time. Tell them you enjoyed the interview. Again, you're having another touch point. I tell everybody life is about this one thing. Life is about relationships. It's about the relationships you build with your spouse. It's about the relationships that you build with your friends. It's about the relationships that you build in an interview. You are building a relationship when you're sitting across the desk from someone in an interview. Never forget that. If you're good at building a relationship, more than likely, you'll get that job. What other questions do you guys have? Yes, ma'am. Here comes the mic. Oh.
Sorry. I just wanted to add something very simple to the interview questions there. So if you have a email address or a social media name that is a fun, goofy name,
Amen.
It might be wise that you make up one that's more professional that you give to your interviewee or interviewer, because that's how they're going to communicate with you. And if it's like Lazy Bum 101, they're probably not going to they're probably not going to call you in. So you may have made up the email when you first got an email address or you first got a social media site, and so it may be fun to you, but when you submit something to them, you want more of a professional one, because sometimes that can be the first red flag and they don't get past that.
It's a great point. Thank you for adding that.
As well as social media.
Yeah.
So if you go to interview, possibly it's a iffy interview, that person may go to your social sites to see what's there. So if you're posting goofy things on your social sites or your, questionable things, that can sometimes also be a determining factor. So sometimes we don't think of those things because that's our personal life. But an employer is also concerned about what you're doing outside of the business, and so that can be a very important determination.
I've not hired people because of that very thing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, no question.
If I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I guess it's coming from a couple different directions, but obviously working in the Christian realm, you want your priorities to be free to serve the Lord. And I've always heard the comment of make your money work for you. You don't have to work necessarily for money because you want the priority to be the Lord and He provides the funds. So in that sense, as well as being a young lady, you don't want to necessarily be desperate for financial stability. That is something that's between you and the Lord will provide for you given your situation. So what would your thoughts be of not putting all your eggs in one basket and having, whether it be investments, passive income, just recommendations, because I feel like the workforce has changed a lot, even in recent generations with clock in, clock outs. People work a side hustle, or they do this, or they do that. And having something as a backup, even if you have a clock in, clock out, you have something to fall back in if your priorities in that job situation change.
So this is my wheelhouse. The fastball's right down the middle of the plate for me on that one.
Yes.
Absolutely, you have to get to a point in life where your money works for you. I retired a year and a half ago, and I am living on what I have invested over the years. You probably can't do that when you're 20, but you should start putting money away. Invest heavily. If your company offers a 401k, you are crazy if you don't take advantage of that. Eventually, buying stocks and things like that, mutual funds, we can talk about all that. But if you make $100 and you're spending $100, going back to the very first question he asked, you're not managing your money right. 10% obviously is a tithe, plus any giving for the Lord that you give. But there needs to be a percent that you are putting away for yourself. And when you get a significant amounts, then I'm happy to talk to you about investing and where to invest. But you should always pay yourself second. Lord first, you second, invest that money. And I could get very deep into it, and I'm not going to because it gets really, really boring. But we can do that. Happy to talk to any of you about that more specifically. But definitely pay yourself. Make your money work for you. You can get to a point in life. Most of you, I imagine, are in your 20s, I would think. When you get old, it's hard to judge the age of people. Everybody looks so young to me. But pay yourself first, and I'll just leave it at that. Do you guys want to add anything to that?
Go ahead.
Take free money. All right, it sounds completely simple, but look, at Waste Management, right? So they have what's called an employee stock purchase plan. And they will offer that to you twice a month where you can actually buy Waste Management stock, and they sell it to you at 15% off the cheapest it's been for that quarter. Okay, so that equates to free money. I mean, for real. And they give you the ability to sign up for a 401k. Waste Management still matches up to 6%. Yep. So in other words, if I'm giving less than that, I'm giving away free money, right? A lot of companies do these things, and we don't take advantage of it. Right now, it's an employee market. I mean, it really is, because everybody's trying to grow. Everybody's trying to increase market share. Everybody's trying to, so everybody wants to take care of their employees. WM is probably the most stupidest thing ever. They have like college. If you work for Waste Management, they will pay for your college. But not only for you, if you have a spouse, they will pay for your spouse's college. And they will pay for your children's college if you want to. Okay? You just have to go through their little portal. Now, you can have degrees for everybody in your family, and WM will pay for all of it. That's how much they care about their employees. Take advantage of what's given. Okay, I have conversations with people all day long that ignore the free stuff. We try to give you things. Accept it. Okay? Yeah, you have to invest some of your money to get that 6% match. But 6% over a lot of time, we've got people that are,
Compounded interest.
18 years old. If you retire from WM, you know how much 6% equates to by the time you retire? That's more than most people ever put away. Right? So take advantage of the things that people want to give you as employers, because they give it away because they want you to like where you work. Okay? But people don't do it because it involves that initial investment, and they have to have the free money to invest their own money in the 401k. And this is where, from the very beginning of our conversation here, we've got to control our debt. Okay, if we don't control debt, we have no flexibility. We have to be there. We have to work overtime. My budget says I need 8 hours a week overtime. Now your flexibility's gone, and you don't have the ability to take advantage of free stuff. Okay? Employee stock purchase plan is only beneficial if you buy the stock. But we can only afford to buy the stock if we're smart enough to stay out of debt and handle our money responsibly. Then we can make it grow, and then it will work for you. It will do everything you want it to. Now we're multiplying and getting into the whole thing that he talks about and loves. And you're young, so it's just going to multiply, and by the time you're my age, you'll be done.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is this. One day, all of you, if you live long enough, will be this old. It's going to happen. And if you are a prudent individual at your age now, you'll start knowing. The Bible says, the prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself. He understands what's going to happen in the future, and he prepares and prepares for that future. You have no excuse to get to retirement time, to get to be 65 years old and not have prepared. If you don't, you're not a prudent person.
Yeah.
Prepare.
I was just going to say, if you're not currently paying rent, live like you are. If you're in your parents' house, if you're in a situation where you're not paying rent, look at what rent would be for a similar situation, a one-bedroom apartment in your area, and put it away every single month. Or if you can't, put away half of it. Because you have an opportunity right now that you'll never have in the future, and you really should invest in living like you're renting your own place right now.
The last 15 years of my work life, I was putting 20% of my earnings in 401k. It stopped after about 4 months because I maxed out. But a total money I was putting aside was 35% of my money. Was putting it aside and not even touching it. And that builds up rather quickly. And it makes retirement very enjoyable. Rachel had a question. I think we got about 5 minutes, is that right?
I have no idea. You know I'm good with time.
What kind of advice do you have for employees who are just entering the job market? They have no experience, they know nothing, but they are ready and willing to learn. Like what advice would you give to them if they're pursuing a career but they don't have experience?
I'll say one thing and then allow these two to jump in. This goes for any of us, be the best employee there. Do whatever you need to do to help the boss out. If he needs somebody to stay 30 minutes late, you be the one that volunteers. You do everything, and in time, you will be a trusted asset for him, and they will look for you. And when the raises come out or the promotions happen, I guarantee you that that's the one they're going to look at.
You asked about stepping into a career with a little less experience. So my degree, I have an associate's degree in business. And so I went 6 years in banking, but then 6 years without a small amount of marketability as I was coming back into the workforce. And I remember thinking, like, how do I make my resume show? The interesting thing is you can be very, very creative with your resumes and find the buzzwords that are mentioned in the job posting itself. And you can, I'm happy to help with things like that. I'm sure Brother Jeff and Brother John would be happy to help with that too. But you attach your buzzwords in your resume because no person is ever looking at your resume. It is going through a system and it's spitting it one way or the other. And so when you create those buzzwords and have that opportunity, and really you have a lot more life experience than you realize you do. Because a lot of times we think job experience, what has somebody paid me to do? But especially here at our church, there's a lot of volunteering that you've done. There are a lot of other things that you can pull from and share those stories and be able to create. And when they ask you a question, you can answer the question honestly. But you've forgotten how marketable you are with the other skills that you bring. The other piece is that hard skills can be taught to anybody. It's really important that you bring the soft skills to any job that you do, and soft skills are something that a lot of times they can't be taught. You can fake it for a little while, and then we're going to figure it out that you were faking it. So knowing that you've got those soft skills and that ability, the customer service, the heart to just make sure that things get done. I don't even know the last time that a person that was punching in actually worked 8 hours on the time without an earbud in their ear, their phone in front of them, a phone call from home. So actually giving an 8 hours worth of work on an 8-hour shift is pretty big for employees right now.
Yep.
So those are the types of things that will really speak to your commitment to a company and your ability to be seen and get the interview in the first place.
See, we had a guy, he interviewed, and as it turns out, he was not old enough to drive for us. I love the kid. Absolutely love the kid. I could not legally offer him a job. I found him just to make sure when he's old enough, he still comes back and applies for a job. He was that good. Okay? What made him different was he was excited about being there. He was willing to do anything. Like if I had an opening, we had just hired a janitor or whatever they call them these days. If I had he would have took anything just to get in the door. Okay? Sometimes that's what you're going to have to do. Right? But if you want to get there, he would have just had to do this job for a few months, and then he would have been qualified. We'd have moved him into driver. My son started working at WM on the back of a garbage truck. She's tapping her watch, by the way. That's what that means. My son started on the back of a residential truck. And so what he did, he had to run, and he's pulling the garbage, and he's dumping garbage cans. Nobody likes that. Right? But he showed up on time. He showed up every day. He did what he had to do, and he has been there, I think, like 3 years now. He's been promoted 4 times. They've taught him an actual job. He is a diesel technician with certifications and everything else. I never imagined a day in my life that Jordan would be a mechanic. But they will invest in you and allow that promotion. The internal stuff is very important to companies. We put all this time and effort into bringing you on board. We want you to be where you want to be. And I tell all my people that, look, if you want to drive a garbage truck in Hawaii, let me know. We can transfer you out there. We want you to succeed and be happy, right? Mm-hmm. So the opportunities will all be there. The first one may just be, I'll do what I got to do to get in the door. If you find that company that you want to work for, be willing to do whatever you got to do to get in the door. And when you do, be that guy. Right? You be that one that they talk about all day long about how she's here on time, he's here on time, he works hard, he does what he's supposed to do, he does extra, he's helping other people with their jobs, he's doing everything, because you will be the very first one that they think about when it's time to put a promotion on the board. Yep. Right? Because you're taking care of everything. You don't care. Sometimes that's what we got to do. I had no experience in garbage whatsoever. But in the interview, we talked about it, and we talked about what my vision was. I had to have a vision for a garbage company that I had never even worked for. But what he was really asking was, how excited are you about being here? Mm-hmm. And are you going to do what you have to do to get it done? And if you do that, promotions are everywhere. Everywhere. I've been promoted 4 times since I started. I've been there 6 years. All you got to do is apply your principles and be willing to, if it's not what you want, I'm going to show you that I'm worth that. And I just want to get in. They're an incredible company to work for. There's a lot of incredible people to work for. I want to go to work for Miss Kim, frankly. And I don't even like it. I don't even like rest homes, but I tell you, I would do it because she is tremendous. Okay? When you find those people, do what you got to do to get in the door and deal with the rest later, because we're good at what we do and we work harder than everybody else. That's really a trick to me. Take what you can and then get to where you need to be, mm-hmm. Right?
So I hope this has been helpful. Our heart's desire is that you will grab something that will benefit you in life. I want you all to have a successful life. The things we've said are principles that will help. We're dismissed.